As a creature that had spent so much of its existence in captivity surrounded by beings it deemed disgusting, SCP-682 was not used to having seemingly unlimited freedom to explore, and was even less used to having tolerable company. And yet, here the hard-to-destroy reptile was entering into level 21 of the Backrooms, with not one, but two accidental companions. The Backrooms were bad enough when faced alone, and the addition of annoying hangers-on only made the whole experience that much more unbearable for 682. Even the fact that SCP-682 was free of the Foundation was little consolation when being contained in the Backrooms was proving to be a far more terrible fate than a lifetime spent in a vat of acid. The first and most important was that the infinitely lovable and perfectly blue hyacinth macaw Jerry, who SCP-682 had known for only 12 levels of the Backrooms, but would undoubtedly kill everything in sight if anything happened to him. Of course, the lizard tended to want to do that anyway, but the sentiment was strong nonetheless. 682 felt the complete opposite way about the plush dino, Backrooms Entity 198, that had been tagging along ever since level 18. There was something about its dumb little smiling face that filled 682 with a boiling rage. Not to mention the fact that having the animated toy around would mean that Jerry's much desired attention would be split between it and 682. 3 was most certainly a crowd. And if the tiny-legged scamp wasn't so proficient at dodging 682's unprovoked claw strikes and tail slaps, the hard-to-destroy reptile would have cut the plush dino out of the equation. But 682 would need to conserve some energy for the entities that lurked in the Backrooms level 21, a series of 4 hallways. Yes, you heard that right. There were only 4 hallways in level 21. Not infinite hallways, not a labyrinth of hallways, not even the same 4 hallways repeated in an endless loop. 4 hallways. That's it. As a consequence of the much smaller scale of level 21, the roving bands of entities that normally are spread out across a much larger dimension find themselves clustered together in the cramped linear span of the 4 hallways. Even a medium entity count can be impossibly dangerous when an explorer is faced with the iconic Backrooms monsters at once. Well, unless those entities are up against SCP-682.
Go on, make my day,
it roared. The approaching regiment of death moths, death rats, facelings, hounds, bursters, smilers, clumps, and even some completely unknown weirdos marched like soldiers. Specifically, the Gorgonites from the 1998 action comedy movie Small Soldiers, because these things were equally messed up looking and equally known for fighting losing battles. However, as SCP-682 charged into the horde, it noticed that this time, the entities were a bit more tactical in the way they approached combat. Was this also a unique property of level 21? Or was the Backrooms taking a page out of 682's book and adapting to new threats? The clumps vaulted with their many hands and rolled along the walls to get behind 682, while the hounds and facelings made a frontal assault. The smilers soon joined the clumps on the other side, using their uncanny ability to shift through the shadows. The death rats gnawed at 682 from underneath, attacking the reptile's footing and doing everything they could to distract it. All the while, the death moths and bursters acted as artillery, shooting acidic slime from a safe distance behind the other entities, or in the case of the death moths from above, just out of 682's reach. SCP-682 almost had to applaud the pathetic entities for getting their act together. It was facing a mobile task force made up of rejected Dungeons & Dragons monsters. A valiant effort, but doomed to end in their defeat. These entities were not the Foundation, and SCP-682 refused to lose to a bunch of aberrations cosplaying as a containment squad. It was time to give them a taste of their own medicine. And during the attacks of many entities at once, SCP-682 became a chimera of monstrous features, stolen from various Backrooms entities. The freakish grin of a smiler spread across its face, while the grasping arms of a clump emerged from its back, along with an impressive pair of death moth wings. The ever-disgusting acid-shooting pustules of a burster appeared across 682's body, pointing in every direction like the cannons on a naval ship. Now fully optimized to take down the organized entities with their own weapons, SCP-682 roared out a battle cry.
Death to the Backrooms!
All burster pods ruptured at once, forcing the entities to take evasive action. Most did not get far, thanks to 682's countless clump arms which grappled and held onto everything within reach. As 682 pulled the entities in towards its teeth and claws, the shredding began. Their numbers were thinned quickly, and the once organized legion fell in disarray, with entities indecisively making desperate attacks or tactical retreats. Now the resemblance between this skirmish with the entities on level 21 and the ones that SCP-682 had with mobile task forces back at the Foundation containment facility was nearly perfect. Except this time, no force, military or otherwise, would come along to put 682 back into confinement. Now this was freedom.
Did you see that, Jerry? That was classic 682. I still got it.
The reptile boasted.
Classic.
Jerry replied. In the excitement of victory, SCP-682 almost forgot that Entity 198 was still here, watching the aftermath of the carnage with the same smile it always wore. Nevertheless, 682 felt rather strongly that the plush dino was judging it.
Nobody asked you, plush dino.
It grumbled. On some level, the plush dino was most likely aware of SCP-682's overwhelming animosity, but it was also a simple entity driven by appropriately simplistic desires. It had its own reasons for staying by the reptile's side. In its usual role on level 18, the plush dino would seek out explorers lost in their own traumatic memories and guide them towards safety, whatever safety meant in the backrooms. The adorable entity had an inherent biological or supernatural radar sense that allowed it to detect individuals experiencing distress and suffering. Since the majority of Backrooms explorers are human, the margin of distress that the plush dino could detect and respond to was kept within the relative limits of normalcy. For this reason, the plush dino had never encountered any being that carried more feelings of distress than 682. The hard-to-destroy reptile was, from Entity 198's perspective, the most mentally pained creature in existence. The plush dino's top priority was now to be a beacon of hope for what it saw as a victim of the ultimate forms of unaddressed trauma. Of course, it was a nonverbal entity and possessed no telepathic or empathetic abilities, so conveying its more wholesome therapeutic intentions to SCP-682 was next to impossible, especially since a being as aggressive and hateful as 682 would be wholly unreceptive to the notion of hugging away its problems. But this would not stop Entity 198 from making the rehabilitation of its now Keter Class charge the meaning of its oddly specific existence, even if that meant leaving potentially thousands of tortured human explorers eternally lost in level 18. The plush dino was now embodying the "I can fix him" mentality to its logical extreme. After trying several doors throughout level 21, it was clear that the majority of them simply led back into other parts of level 21's 4 hallways, much like the doors in a chase scene from a Hanna-Barbera cartoon. Eventually, 682 and his party members stumbled upon a dimensional tear in the side of one of the hallways. This looked like the entrance to the next level, so 682 decided to throw caution to the wind and step through into level 22, the car park, which, unlike some of the previous levels, was in fact infinite, for whatever that was worth. A few damaged 50s-era automobiles occupied the parking spots, their metal rusted and torn to shreds. More curiously, there was what appeared to be a circus tent wedged between some of the concrete supports. There were no entities around the main area of level 21, so SCP-682 entered the tent, thinking that it was perhaps another exit. For once it seemed that the Backrooms weren't subverting the reptile's expectations, as inside the tent was none other than the inside of a tent. Rows of plastic folded chairs sat within, facing a wooden podium on an elevated stage. This tent was made to hold many humans, but strangely, there was only one, an old man in ragged hiking gear that stood amongst the chairs, scribbling notes into a journal of sorts. He wore an enormous backpack that swelled with supplies and unusual bottled items.
"Oh, the fallen nation of Amstable lived inside of tents like this one,"
the old man muttered to himself. He then looked over his shoulder and noticed SCP-682 glaring at him. He closed his journal and stared back with an inquisitive look on his face.
"Oh, a new entity. I don't get to see that every day,"
the human laughed.
"Though why is it with Entity 7 and Entity 198?
If those numbers are so important to you, mine is 682.
SCP-682 growled.
"Entity 682?
Asked the old man, scratching his white beard.
"How have I never heard of you?"
I am not an entity.
SCP-682 snapped back.
I'm an anomaly.
The old man shrugged and said,
"I fail to see the distinction."
That makes two of us.
682 thought.
"Anyway, anomaly 682, I'd advise against attacking me. I'm rather busy collecting notes for the Calag Institute, and I can be a force of nature when I'm interrupted. I've dealt with bigger and scarier things than you, so wander off and leave me to my work."
The old man had far too much confidence for 682's liking. Who did this human think he was, anyway? It was not going to be talked down to like that, especially not by someone from any kind of institute. It was go time. Without another word, the reptile began plowing through the chairs towards the elderly human who, in a display of agility unexpected for someone his age, gracefully hopped across the chairs to the stage, successfully evading 682's charge.
"Well, I did warn you."
The old man reached into his pack and produced a small dark object carved of lapis lazuli stone. It resembled a scarab, or dung beetle, and there were hieroglyphics across the base of it. The old man chanted a prayer to the stone, invoking the name of the Egyptian god Khepri, and causing the scarab's wings to extend. A great blue light was emitted from the lapis stone, and a terrible droning buzz hit 682 all at once, stunning it for a moment. The old man left the wing beetle hovering in the air and proceeded to draw two more unusual objects from his knapsack. In one hand, he held a bottle of fine red powder, while in the other held a bottle that appeared to contain electrical energy. He hurled both at SCP-682 and ducked for cover behind the stage. Upon impact, the bottles created a large explosion of electrical flames, which immediately caused the entire tent to go up. The old man drew a large knife and cut his way out of the tent, leaving 682 behind to burn as the structure collapsed. The human made a break for the nearest concrete ramp leading down to the lower areas of the parking garage. He looked back to see a heavily scorched 682 in hot pursuit, but no signs of Entity 7 Jerry and Entity 198 the plush dino. The entity, no, the anomaly, was more durable than the old man expected, and far more willing to endure pain if it meant chasing down prey. In a desperate bid to keep the monster from catching him, the old man retrieved a crystal and metal artifact from his inventory. It was known as a pocket, and true to its name, it contained a pocket dimension which could store large objects and release them at the command of its user. Earlier in his trip through level 22, the old man had stored a couple of damaged cars in the pocket in case he needed to cover from an attacking entity. As 682 gained on him, he summoned the cars back from the pocket, causing them to land in the reptile's path. While ineffective at stopping the creature, it gave the old man enough time to take a sharp turn around a corner and find a hiding spot amongst the other tents and broken down cars. The seasoned explorer had one last trick up his sleeve, and he prayed that it would bring an end to this terrifying encounter. As SCP-682 sniffed the air, searching for him, the old man produced another bottle of unbridled energy, this time derived from the same kind of dimensional rift found on level 21. He hurled it towards the reptile not a moment too soon, and watched in awe as the bottle exploded. The floor and ceilings began to crumble as arcs of energy surrounded 682.
What is this?
SCP-682 thought, feeling itself being pulled from this reality and into another. Seconds later, the reptile was gone in a flash of energy. The old man wiped his brow in relief. That was close. Wherever 682 was after being warped by the dimensional terror, this particular explorer had managed to escape its wrath for now. But would others be so lucky? Want to own an SCP of your own? Go to scpswag.com for premium anomalous merchandise. Now go check out Could SCP-682 Be Contained in the Backrooms? And SCP-682 Slaughters Through the Backrooms for more Backrooms carnage.